them around and make sure everybody gets a chance to look at these. Good morning, and thank you for coming to part 2 of my roast of Pastor Roger. Part 1 was pretty successful, but I did get some feedback that I was not brutal enough. So I've been working on this for a couple of weeks. That was a joke. In 15th century Japan, a shogun named Ashikaga Yoshimasha broke a bowl. Back then it wasn't so easy to just get new things when something broke, so he sent the bowl to China for repair. Legend has it that he was extremely disappointed when it came back functional but joined with ugly metal staples. The craftsmen of this time began working to find another way to fix broken things, and the Japanese art of kintsugi, or golden joinery, was born. Kintsugi artisans join broken bits of pottery with a special lacquer dusted with gold, silver, or platinum, creating beautiful new works of art. Closely related to this is the practice of sashiko, or Japanese visible mending. In this art form, ripped or worn clothes are stitched and patched back together using embroidery that's meant to be seen rather than hidden. Both these art forms flow from the Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi, which calls on us to see the beauty in the flawed, imperfect, and broken. Brokenness is all over our scriptures today. In Samuel, David seeks to make good on his promise to his dear friend Jonathan by restoring Jonathan's son Mephibosheth, who was seriously injured during David's ascension to the throne, to the wealth Mephibosheth should rightly have inherited from his royal ancestors. In Paul's second and final letter to his friend Timothy, he urges his friend to embrace the assurance of Christ's presence and not to be afraid or overwhelmed. And in our gospel reading, Jesus again stumps the religious and legal experts who were attempting to stump him by seeing the humanity, the brokenness, in both the woman the Pharisees sought to condemn and in the Pharisees who sought to condemn both her and Jesus. But we don't really need to look at these stories to see brokenness. I see it every day when I pass the homeless woman begging for change at the corner of I-44 and 36th Street. I see it in the patients who come to me trying to make some sense out of the pain they're exhausted from bearing by themselves. And I see it in myself when I think of the kind of person I want to be and the kind of person I am. The idea that that very brokenness that makes us turn our eyes away in shame should be looked at, engaged, even celebrated somehow as a thing of inherent beauty. That idea is so weird, it almost seems like a heresy. We're ready to throw away that which isn't new and perfect anymore, almost without thinking about it, certainly without any regret, and usually with a considerable amount of relief. What's that about, do you think? Why should we feel so relieved in those moments? Well, shame, mostly, right? Shame is that feeling that we have that there's something wrong or bad about us. We sometimes get that feeling confused with guilt, which is related to the awareness that we've done something wrong that hurt someone or violated our values. Shame is different though. Shame tells us we're worthless, hopelessly broken, unworthy of love, connection, or healing. Shame tells us we might as well throw ourselves away because no one would want us the way that we are. And shame is what feels relieved when we can get rid of or hide away things that remind us of our brokenness. That relief is a powerful thing, isn't it? It's like heroin. It's incredibly important in a moment of intolerable need and incredibly addictive and destructive in its shallowness and and emptiness. Heroin won't heal a broken leg, but it'll make you forget for a little while that your leg is broken. It feels so good when I can convince myself that racism is something that only lives in those guys who put on the pointy white hats and they burn crosses, and not in myself. But I've grown up with the privilege of a world that tells me that white skin is normal and pretty and more trustworthy than dark skin. That's painful, isn't it? I need to distance myself from that awareness. And when I can do that, it feels good, but like a heroin high, that good feeling goes away after a while, and I'm left to face reality, that I am broken, and I benefit from a broken system that causes suffering to my sisters and brothers of color. There are so many sources of brokenness: abuse, tragedy, poverty, disease, selfishness, perfectionism. I could go on and on. If you've been alive long enough, you've been dropped a time or two, and you've got the cracks to prove it. You can even just through bad luck be born into broken situations, as all the foster parents in our congregation can tell you. One of my favorite people of all time is Mr. Rogers. I watched his show on public television every day as a child, and I remember feeling soothed by the rituals and songs he shared. In one episode, Daniel Striped Tiger is struggling with a sense of himself as being broken. He confides in his friend Lady Aberlin his worst fear, that he might be a mistake. He sings, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm a mistake. I'm not like anyone else I know. When I'm asleep or even awake, sometimes I get to dreaming that I'm just a fake. I'm not like anyone else. Others I know are big and are wild. I'm very small and quite tame. Most of the time I'm weak and I'm mild. Do you suppose that's a shame? Often I wonder if I'm a mistake. I'm not supposed to be scared, am I? Sometimes I cry and sometimes I shake, wondering, isn't it true that the strong never break? I'm not like anyone else I know. I'm not like anyone else." I feel you, Daniel. I imagine that Mephibosheth felt the same way, struggling to make the journey to see David, who, for all he knew, wanted to kill off the last of a rival royal line. Probably Timothy was struggling with similar feelings. Some of Daniel's words echo Paul's words to Timothy, in fact. And certainly the woman brought before Jesus as a trap probably felt some of that too. So what is the Christian response here? In some Old Testament stories, the lame are made to walk again. God's power is revealed in miraculous healings or even through the raising of the dead. Jesus has certainly been known to forgive people's sins and send them on their way completely healed. But those things don't happen in our stories today. Mephibosheth continues to be disabled by his injury. Paul is dying even as he encourages Timothy to be brave, and we don't know how Timothy received his friend's last words. In the gospel reading, Jesus spares the woman's life, but he does not tell her, or the Pharisees for that matter, that their sins are forgiven, as he has in other cases. So what gives? Well, as I was diving down the rabbit hole of Japanese philosophy and visible mending art this week, I came upon the words of Jessica Marquez from her book Make and Mend. We repair those objects we value most, adding to their history, celebrating their imperfections, and giving them new life. In that episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood that I referenced earlier, Daniel's striped tiger isn't just left hanging with his self-doubt. Lady Aberlin sings back to him, "I think you are just fine as you are. I really must tell you, I do like the person that you are becoming. When you are sleeping, when you are waking, you're my friend. It's really true, I like you. Crying or shaking or dreaming or breaking, there's no one mistaking it. You're my best friend. I think you are just fine as you are. I really must tell you, I do like the person that you are becoming. When you are sleeping, when you are waking, you're not a fake. You're no mistake. You're my friend. After she sings this verse, they sing together in counterpoint. Daniel doesn't change his song though. He's still singing about feeling like a mistake and imagining that he shouldn't be afraid or ever break. But Lady Aberlin doesn't change her song either. She continues to sing to him that she loves him just as he is, that she admires the person that he is growing into, and that even in his brokenness, he is her friend. I love this. I love that Daniel has a friend who can listen to his broken feelings, gently remind him of the truth of himself, and then continue to sing that truth to him, even when he's not feeling it. This is what I see happening in these scriptures today. Mephibosheth isn't healed of his injury, but his brokenness is welcomed into David's palace. And the relationship between their two families is mended together with the golden lacquer of grace, becoming something new and even more beautiful. Timothy is reminded by Paul, who struggled with his own brokenness, that although our brokenness is real, so is the grace that mends us back together and calls us to share our broken places as a witness to others, that there are no unbroken or unmended pots in the kingdom of God. The Pharisees have presented this woman to Jesus as though she's just a tool for them to get at him. Jesus reaches across their rigid religious rules to their humanity and calls the woman into the life of the visibly mended. Go and sin no more, he says. It's not an order, it's an invitation into new life. God repairs those God values most, not with some kind of magic wand that leaves no trace or that unrings the bell of trauma and brokenness, but through the painful process of overcoming our shame and embracing the grace and relationship that glues our broken pieces back together and makes our mess into something beautiful and holy. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.